Okay, so hopefully this is gonna work because I already know how drifty this phone is. It's 7:39 a.m. Um, well, maybe this will work, maybe it won't. So, I think if I just like leave the tab open and I try to read the notes from Google Docs because I didn't write this down. I almost forgot completely about even making this video about this whole scenario. So I guess I could start off with this though. There was a guy who came to the resource center, usual ch0m0 sex parade. And I know people are going to try to make it a homeless thing, something that I keep pointing out and I've been saying and I've noticed a lot, especially, wait a minute. Okay, I had to make sure it was even still recording because it switched to a whole nother screen. So, especially since I've been where I'm at now, is that 99% of these people aren't homeless. A lot of these people are just like, similar to like the young boys that have come out here and talk to like different guys, or even they'll go other places and talk to different risky guys. Even makes me think back to the whole ch0m0 pimp from LA situation that I did make a video about finally like some months ago. Although it happened in early 2023 when that was like the second time I tried to leave when I really escaped and I was pretty much staying at IHOP. And like those boys, one had an abusive stepdad that had him and his brother kicked out, and he was 14. The other one was also 14, and he lived with his aunts. And they would go to this guy that they worked with, the ch0m0 pimp from LA, which I really feel like he escaped LA to try to avoid all these charges that are supposedly being put on people now with the way he acts. But anyhow, he would just call himself teaching them how to spit game and stuff. I mean, not spit, well, that too, but how to play the game looking for a girlfriend, but he was really just teaching them his little perversion and different stuff about getting with kids. And they just wanted a guy to give them some attention that wasn't beating on them and cursing them out, which he would call himself cursing me out though. But yeah, that's what it makes me think of, because generally people who are lonely, they go to like these certain types of environments to look for people to talk to, because they know that they'll probably find somebody, and also somebody who's also desperate. But then there are the full-blown predatory people that are actually really coming to like look for people to do stuff to, and then manipulate into stuff and to kidnap, and nobody ever sees them again. Of course, especially at the Catholic shelter, which I was told by a lady way back when I first came here, that it's not even really safe to be around, and most people stopped coming around here due to the whole thing of like them pimping people out and stuff and people going missing. And so, what was I getting at with that? Oh yeah, so it's like, yeah, just most of these people are coming here looking for people to do something to. And also generally, just with like certain types of sexual predators, they're gonna be outside a lot anyways, even if they have a place to be at, which most of them do. Like, they'll come out here bragging about their house and how you should go back to their house with them. I even remember there was this dude last year when I was stuck on the other side of town when I first came here. I thought he was homeless too until he tried to talk me into going back to his house because he had cute puppies. And then someone else, similar situation. I thought he was homeless until he tried to get me to go to his house by telling me he would play Mario with me and he had other games. Then one dude, I thought he was homeless until a few Sundays ago he tried to lure me to his house with candy. And then it was Tootsie Rolls at that, not even anything good. It was some bull crap. He didn't even have like chocolate bars or anything. And so that's the thing, that 99% of these people aren't homeless. They're just looking for victims, or generally they just hang out in these types of environments because they're lonely, but they're still sexual predators. But there are people that do that aren't, like the young guys, which I already talked about. And I even remember when I was in Oregon, there was this one lady that said that she didn't like homeless people because her son had got shot. First of all, I mean, people claim that in Oregon, in Portland specifically, there are homeless people running around with guns and stuff, but it's like, Now, where in the world is a homeless person really going to get a gun from? And then, second of all, I just find that so weird, anyways, on the West Coast. Not that I'm saying that didn't happen, but like a lot of those people are so anti GUN because all the GUN stuff is really just Southern culture in general. So it just sounds really interesting to me. But anywho, she said that her son didn't have any friends, so he would go hang out in with homeless people, and he got shot. And she said that he didn't use substances and that he just had mental health issues. Or well, somebody else actually told me that that's what she told them. But it's like I remember I mentioned this situation somewhat before, and I was like, well, whatever he supposedly has, she has it too. That's why I don't like that mental illness stuff in general. Sounds like he was trying to get away from her and have some people to hang out with. But that's kind of besides the point. That's just another example. And so, anywho, now to get to the point. So, typical ch0m0 grapist sex pred. He was talking to the staff member lady, and she kept trying to get him to get away from her so she could give me a tissue roll. And this even goes back to something else. I'm about to go on another rant. This goes back to something else that I've been thinking a lot about, especially since being where I'm at now. The fact that only women work here is honestly really risky. Although, well, at that specific resource center, at some of the other ones, the women are trifling and weird too. But not at that one. Not the one that I'm talking about now, where the whole situation with this guy went down. I just feel like there really needs to be some guys working there, but they would protect the women that work there maybe, but then it's like all the guys are so risky. It even makes me think back to the whole thing back when I got stuck in Birmingham, Alabama for those 2 weeks trying to help that girl that was being sex trafficked by CPS in early 2023. And I went to this one shelter that I guess was a men's shelter. Really, there was just mostly homeless guys, so most of the shelters were considered men's shelters. Somebody had pointed me in the direction of how to get there so I could try to get something to eat. And that food had me in so much pain, but then I also have so many health issues. It could be I was reacting to whatever bullcrap is in the food as well. Although my symptoms did clear up after running away, which is interesting. But I feel like that's something to do with the blood pooling issues from the pots, and like since the blood was flowing better when I'm constantly moving around, I could digest food somewhat better. And so, anyways. I'm trying to think about what else to say with that. Oh yeah, the point that I was getting at though. I went there to get something to eat, and then this one male staff member came up from nowhere. He hugged me from behind, and it was like a tight hug. It was crazy. He was the usual sex pred that has red eyes. People like I've mentioned this before. I made a video specifically about this with a thumbnail of I think they called him Prophet Lovey or something. He's the thumbnail. Because he's a great example of this. Okay, wait a minute. In that video, I talk about people always talk about the narcissistic black guys, which that's just a part of demon possession at the moment, and also especially Marine Kingdom and like those types of spirits in general. But something that I noticed really young and have pieced together, especially since being out here where I'm at now, is the sex pred red eyes, or just a predatory person red eyes in general. Like even thinking back to what was I calling her? Miss S from the Miss S and J videos. I actually ran into her last weekend, and her mouth dropped, and she was telling people that she knows me, and I was like, yeah, let me hurry up and get out of here. And so anywho, she has red eyes actually, but I mean she generally looks very visibly risky if you have any type of discernment whatsoever, so you shouldn't even have to go off the whole red eyes thing. And some dude had even pointed that out back when Miss J was still here, and she showed him a picture of her when she was telling people about the whole situation, about how the lady had her trapped up in her house, and he was even like, she doesn't look mentally well. Although I don't really like all the mental illness label stuff that's used to either blame and frame and gaslight abuse victims, or to sometimes make perpetrators seem like what they're doing isn't that bad. Like the whole situation with that sex pred dude that was in my screenshot collage video titled, I may change the title though, but as of right now it's titled "Your Parents Can Legally Shoot You" or something like that. And in that video there's a whole situation of a lady exposing one of the sex preds that's always out here doing stuff to people, and how he was touching himself while looking at her 11-year-old and trying to get her to come to him behind her back and all types of stuff. And so, anywho, people are of course trying to do the whole he's just mentally ill bull crap. People need to stop playing that game, because for one, I already don't like the mental illness label bull crap in general, and the mental health system is a part of every branch of the human cash cow systems and cash for kids system. They create an issue that isn't already there, and they help blame abuse victims for stuff. And so, hold on, I'm getting distracted by background noise. Okay, yeah, I had to pause that for a second. But anywho, I think I was last saying, I don't know. My brain synapses are already screwed up, and then like everything that just happened threw me off. But I wouldn't have remembered anyways if I would have paused for something else. So, but I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'll put it in the description, or maybe I'll remember. But yes. So, what all did I? Okay, yeah. I don't even know. Never mind. Let me just read the thing, because I don't know what in the world. So, guy pulls up asking it. Oh, no, this was another situation, but I guess, yeah, I'll read that last, because that's kind of not the main point we're asking in the staff. Okay, so, hold up. I got a notification that the recorder stopped. It probably did. Asking the staff if she plays tennis, and says she looks like it with what she has on. Because, I mean, she was wearing like a skirt that's kind of short, but it's like, I guess I do wear that for tennis, but just the whole situation was just the usual predatory mess, to be honest. I often do wonder about the safety of the staff since they're female. Okay, so here's the thing with the dude. Hopefully, I'll get to the point. So, I was outside, and of course he was doing the whole "you're a really good looking kid" thing, just like a lot of people do, to be honest. I would say that some of the worst compliments that I've gotten is you're so hot and beautiful, beautiful and adorable, like my kids and grandkids and stuff like that. Those are some of the worst compliments that I've gotten as of lately, but I mean, it gets worse. And so he was talking about you look like Michael Jackson or his cousin or Janet Jackson before the surgeries. Now, funny enough, I did have somebody tell me this before. I remember when I was, before I escaped, my sister had that one friend, the one that would come over to our house and get starved and beat on with us. They used to be in, the abuse evidence channels, especially, I think, the part 2 channel to the part, I don't even know. I guess the part 5 or 4. Apparently, after I escaped, once they moved back, because apparently everybody had moved to another state, but then they moved back for a little while or something like that. He started coming back around, apparently, and my siblings had told him that I escaped, and then he said, well, good for her. But yeah, so that boy, if anybody hears even from the Evans channels and remembers him, he would say that I looked like Michael Jackson too, but I don't know. And if I'm not mistaken, it was him or somebody else that was always telling me and my younger sister that we looked like China Aunt McLean. So I think it may just have something to do with the whole all Bantus look-alike thing or something like that. But yeah, I noticed that like a lot of quote-unquote white people do that in general though. Like I was walking downtown, and this girl that I saw before, she was like, there's that Mario person. And then she had told her quote-unquote black friend that me and her look like. We really don't, to be honest, like at all. But anywho, oops, crap. I gotta make sure I'm even still recording. Okay. So, I don't know if it was that, but then some lady, oops, wait a minute. Hold up. I gotta leave the tab open, I forgot. Then some lady was like, she looked at him, or no, these two ladies, because it was one, the lady that warned me about the whole thing with the Catholic Church and the Catholic charities and them trafficking people. And she also warned me about a lot of other things, and she was around during the whole ch0m0 police situation as well that I talk about pretty often, where that guy who was in love with me and his own kids got the police to help him sexually harass me before I had to escape that side of town. Especially because I kept getting told that I was going to go to jail for going to sleep or just for like being around in general and just for sitting down and existing. Wait a minute. I don't know if I'm getting circled by a bee or a fly. So, after the ladies had looked at him, he was like, what? She was a good looking kid talking about Janet Jackson. And it's like, I was just like, well, who is Janet Jackson anyways? And then after a while, he started going on one of those non-stop rants. And I noticed that a lot of these people like this, they get labeled off as being on the schizo spectrum. And the funny thing about it, especially due to them going on like these non-stop rants about molesting kids and stuff and raping people that they go on. But it's interesting because it reminds me of a whole situation during my Munchausen when like around the whole time, this was either early part 1. No, I think this was right before I started the part 1 of youz Evidence channel, if I'm remembering right. Because I started that in like early 2021. Because I remember the whole crazy argument series playlist thing where my dad was in the video talking about some I've been alive for over 5,000 years. And then his girlfriend was like, yeah, you're crazy as F, and all that stuff it was a lot of stuff with that. But anywho, that was in March or either February 2021. So I definitely started the part 1 Abuse Evidence channel in early 2021, if not late 2020, but I'm pretty sure early 2021. Then I started making everything public during that time as well. And so anyhow. What was I getting? Oh yeah, anyways. So there was this one psychiatrist that my dad and grandma had got me put back under because apparently my mom used to like talk to her too. Now I never met the lady and she never met me, which even goes back to a screenshot that I may edit, and it depends on if I like actually go to the library to like edit this video or not. I may not. I may just make that the thumbnail, to be honest. I don't know. But that went along with one of the things that somebody said to me, which is that it's definitely medical malpractice for somebody to quote unquote treat you while never have appointments literally with you. So the first time I was under her was when I was 12, and I got put back under her for like, it was only 2 weeks to be honest. And then that was during the whole 3-day, 3-day coma from serotonin syndrome, and then there was a 2-week scenario, which I think that aside from the serotonin syndrome comas, that's generally just the fact that like these drugs can like wipe out your thoughts, and they just give you a blank mind, and you're literally just in a daze, and you can't do anything, you can't move, you can't use the bathroom. In fact, I remember my brother, he got put on some ADHD drugs, my older scapegoat brother, that was kicked out they were all kicked out at 14 and younger, but nobody saw him again till he was in his like mid to late 20s. But yeah, when my mom used to put him on those drugs, he would be slobbing, he would be sitting there, he would pee himself, he couldn't move, he couldn't talk. That's before I was born, but my mom would make jokes about it. My older enabler and golden child sisters would make jokes about it. He would talk about it while crying, of course. So yeah, that whole thing. And so anyways, why did I mention that again? I'm trying to remember how I got to that. How did I... Wait a minute, hold up. Okay, yeah, so I guess I went on kind of like a secondhand trauma dump, but the reason I got to that was because during the whole situation of my dad and grandma talking to that psychiatrist lady and telling her whatever in the world, there was a whole thing where I guess due to my dad's trauma from being sex trafficked by lawyers and judges and police and stuff. And generally just how he didn't like me in general, and like a lot of people, even aside from him, have like projected their feelings about their molesters onto me, or I've reminded them of their molesters in some way, which is really unfortunate. That's not what I want to do, but I feel like I also did that with him, which that can even go into the whole video, or the part 2 that I'm going to make of my video, I'm not missing out, part 1, or whatever. Okay, stop recording. It always does it after a while. It just cuts off. Anyways, anyhow. But so him hopefully won't become a corrupted file. So him and my grandma were always claiming that our neighbor that they claimed had dementia and they claimed was racist. I wouldn't be surprised, but he would like pee outside sometimes. I remember my dad had posted a picture on Facebook of that once for some reason, but then people told him to delete it, so he did after a while. They would say that like he used to work for the FBI or something like that, and it's like, shoot, I highly doubt that he worked for the FBI. He's living here. I mean, it was houses, it wasn't the hood, but it's still like, I highly doubt that. But they always claim that. I would say bare minimum, maybe he was a retired veteran, but I believe that them claiming he worked for the FBI, or well, he was a retired FBI agent, I feel like that was just their paranoia. I highly doubt that. But they said that like after his wife died, he lost his mind. And then that's when he started peeing outside with the dog in the morning. And so my dad has started to make up these stories, especially after the whole thing happened, where I went into the 3-day serotonin syndrome coma. Because when I woke up, I had a UTI because I wasn't able to go to the bathroom or anything. Especially once that happened, he started claiming that I was like just hallucinating that I was pregnant, or that he thought I was pregnant, and it was just a bunch of weird stuff. And then my grandma kept telling him to stop telling people that I thought that I was pregnant by somebody, because since I'm not allowed to leave the house, the only person I could be pregnant by is him. And so she didn't want him to make people think that he was doing something to me, so she kept telling him to stop. It's just a bunch of weird, sick stuff, to be honest. Which, ironically enough, that was also around the time where my grandma had told me, and she told me and my dad together at one point, that we needed to stop that, quote unquote, because she felt like we were having sex. And so all more the reason why I had to get out of there. And I started to realize that honestly, maybe it's like, I don't even know though, because I remember like in the early part of the evidence channels and me being in support groups, there was even this one guy that was like, he was like the situation where your mom and her boyfriend is, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, that's bad, but your dad sounds like a total nightmare. I just remember that part. And it's like, I mean, yeah, some points more than others, although that was a post where I was talking about also things that happened when I was 8, because that was when I was like just letting things out to help get over the gaslight and just like talk about things in general, back when I was in support groups during, I guess, the part well, I would say it was the part 1 channel on, no, the part 2 channel on up, maybe, or maybe the part 1, because if I'm not mistaken, I would leave like links to my channel and comment under my channel, especially back when the videos were still unlisted before I made them public, to get people to give me their tips and advice on it. And of course, like, there was even this whole situation where this one white guy was like, well, you are schizo because your hair is messy, and I was wearing an afro. That was one of kind of the eye-opening comments that kind of let me know what the stuff really meant, that like these labels are very racial and stuff, although of course technically, since I wasn't old enough, I was never formally actually diagnosed with that, which makes sense because it would be easier for me to go back and sue for something like that, which is what that made the situation more confusing though. But it was like, that was really eye-opening. But then after that, I was like, okay, so I got to make the videos public, because I was still, one of the points of the videos or the abuse evidence channels was the whole thing that in the beginning I was being made to feel like, okay, people don't believe me, and so I have to like make these videos. And that's how I sat there and recorded over 1,950 plus abuse evidence videos, and nobody gave a crap about. And of course, by the time I had like got the GA anyways, everybody was already admitting that they already knew what was going on, and that it was very obvious that it's not that people didn't believe me. People just people pretended not to believe because they didn't care. But then also, the mandated reporters are the cash for kids system staff anyways, so they're not going to do anything because their job is to help abuse you or to abuse you themselves, or really do those two things together. But that's why I made the videos, and somebody commented somewhere, at least by the part 2 channel, they were like, you should make posts about this and share your videos in r/raised by narcissists because somebody there could possibly help you, quote unquote help. But that was helpful though. I got banned from there really quickly because the mod was like really abusive to people. And then that's when me and a couple other people had like made this side group because of the issues with I think it was youz/ch0m0.Women. I'm pretty sure because I remember like I tried to sell some Reddit merch. I mean not Reddit merch. I tried to sell some merch about her Reddit account and how toxic she was. And I had made some shirts on Redbubble that in the shirt said I survived youz/ch0m0.Women. Nobody bought any, but yeah, I deleted that though. That went how that went, but I tried. I shared them in the group and everything. But what was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah, then the scary thing was that she had a son even though she was a whole feminist and she was just toxic in general. But what was I getting at with all that? Oh yeah, so yeah, I remember now. So when my dad was saying all that stuff, he claimed that like I was a hoe pretty much, even though I didn't have any friends. I couldn't leave the house. I wasn't even allowed to sit on the porch. I had been in a coma for the past couple months most of the time. So it's just like, okay, so what in the world? And there's a lot that I could say with that, but I'll be somewhere else. And so then there was the whole thing where when my dad was saying a whole bunch of bullcrap and he was claiming that I was sneaking to go have sex with our neighbor who supposedly was a retired FBI agent with dementia that peed outside. The only thing that I know was true is that he peed outside. I don't know about all the other stuff. And then that's when, supposedly, because I never talked to this lady. She never met me even when she first was quote unquote treating me at 12. She never met me or talked to me before, and I never met or talked to her before. She doesn't even know what I sound or look like. But that's when my dad had told me that she said there's a sexual side to schizophrenia, but nobody talks about it. And he was like, she said go ahead and get her checked, go ahead and go get her ultrasound, get her put on birth control, and what else was it? Get me checked for STDs and a whole bunch of other weird, crazy stuff. And then one of the things about it is that with the fact that she's supposed to be a mandated reporter, if I was being allowed to go have sex with the neighbor, that would be molestation or rape or something anyways, not just a relationship. And then the dude was 80 something at that, and it's like but that's what that makes me think about. And so it is kind of interesting, but I do notice that like as I've been saying, like a lot of people, and I've been noticing this especially where I'm at now, they definitely have like a lot of sex demon stuff going on. Like I've noticed that, like they'll be like doing those weird Catholic sign-in prayers, which that's actually really interesting because especially like when I was in Cali, that's when I first started to like see stuff like that of like people, they'll be doing like the Catholic sign-in prayers while talking to themselves or talking to whatever in the world. And that even goes back to what I realized, especially when it comes to the quote-unquote white community, is that people go into the Catholic Church and then they get molested and abused, of course, and then they end up with DID and schizo and all this other stuff and all these types of like issues. But I also noticed that like some of these guys are like praying for some self-control to not grape anybody. But yeah, so that's what I was getting at with that, but I kind of started to forget. So to go back to reading the notes, okay, what she was a good-looking kid, ranting. The next bullet point, ranting in ladies' ears about wanting to have sex with me and some kid across the street who was mowing her lawn. And so yeah, that was also another issue. He started talking about this girl across the street who was mowing her lawn, and She looked like she had just got like home from soccer practice or something. And he was just talking about how hot she was and all types of stuff that he wanted to do to her. And then he would look at me and start talking about me. And then he was sitting beside the lady ranting in her ear about him wanting to sexually assault people. And then she started to have this scared look on her face. And then me and the other lady, which I think in other videos I called her D, the one who warned me about the Catholic trafficking and stuff way back when I came here last year, at least once I started getting bus money to be able to even go places to get something to eat, because I was sitting around starving for months with this one dude who was out here back then. And so anywho, the lady started putting her head in her shirt, and then she was shaking her head no and all types of stuff. Next bullet point, so the D lady had told me he used to be a teacher in K-12 in college. She was like, you won't believe this, but guess what? This dude used to be a teacher in K-12, high school, and college at the university. And I was just like, oh gosh. I know he was doing all types of stuff to people. And then the next bullet point, this is kind of irrelevant, but this can go into the whole dronophile agenda, and even in the hypothetically pedo and paraphilia place, or whatever it's titled. So I know, like I've mentioned before throughout the years, that ever since I was 7 especially, I've liked researching, not really anymore, but I liked researching things like MK Ultra, trauma symptom stuff, DID, subliminal messages, backmasking. I'm trying to think about what else. What was the other thing? Beta sex kit and programming. You can't even really find a lot of info about this stuff anymore, because like as censorship has gotten worse and worse since 2016 especially, a lot of things have been scraped off the internet by the early to late 2010s. So you can't really find out a lot of stuff about a lot of things anymore. Like whenever Instagram, I think it was Instagram, would have their like quote unquote shutdowns, really what they were doing is clearing their servers to delete a lot of stuff that people were finding and posting as well. So they would like pretty much fake like these shutdowns. But anywho, there used to be more info about hypersexuality programming, which that's something that'll really affect you, especially for somebody who's already in the typical situation where you're being abused in general, but also if you're going through like SA and stuff. And it just sets you up to have more issues. Kind of like I pointed out in one video with the whole Lovely Peaches situation, which she was a girl who was being sex trafficked since she was a newborn, but nobody gave a crap about her. People just made memes about her. And people also assumed that she was a lot older than she actually was, because she was pretty big, so it made her look older. But yeah, so there was that whole thing. But I pointed out before in some video that I noticed that these traumatized turned out boys from the UK who really liked Lovely Peaches also really liked Nicki Minaj, which she's under like heavy DID. And I know my older enabler Golden Child sister used to like her a lot as well. She also liked Narnia and Harry Potter and all that stuff. And she's like a good initiator for people that already have these types of trauma. And it also was interesting to me because one of her alters, her multiple personalities, is a gay boy named Roman who's British. And that was just very interesting to me, especially when I met a lot of like boys from the UK and stuff personally that liked both Nicki Minaj and Lovely Peaches, and they would consider her their queen for some reason, which I just find so weird. I don't know why that was, but for whatever reason, a lot of gay boys from the UK really like Lovely Peaches, and these are white boys at that. They're not even quote unquote black. And so then I'm trying to think about what else to say with that. I don't even know what I was getting at. Oh yeah, so one of the things about the hypersexuality programming is not only is like everybody turned out, but one of the biggest agendas is to give everybody paraphilias, which goes into the whole thing with the dronophile agenda that I've been talking about, that people are pushing, especially traumatized women and girls. And it's funny because they claim that they're working against predators, but they're really pushing a lot of predatory ideologies, which, as I talked about before, the what I like to call the dronophile agenda goes into a general martyr complex, and it's the idea that, or it goes into the idea that the only way to not be the perpetrator is to be the victim. So instead of like dating people their age, they date people way older than them, because in their eyes, that's the opposite of being a predator, even though it's really stupid. You could even say to a certain extent that it's enabling, in this mindset in general, enables actual predatory behavior. And it goes into the thing that I always talk about, which an example that I like to give is the idea that like an 18-year-old can't date a 17-year-old, or a 17-year-old can't date a 16-year-old, but a 16-year-old or 18-year-old could date a 30-year-old, and then that's okay. And these people that have these mindsets, which is typically women and girls, which is like, for example, yeah, I'm like like this one girl said, I just turned 20 or something like that. Something like that. She's 20. She wouldn't date anybody that's even a couple months or a year younger than her, but she dates somebody that's 3 years older than her. And it's like, okay, well, you claim that that's bad and that's wrong because they're in high school or they're just younger. But it's like, what if the 23-year-old said the same thing to you, that they don't want to date you because you're younger? If you think that dating somebody that's even like a year younger than you is morally wrong, then wouldn't like somebody dating you who's 23 be morally wrong, quote unquote? And wouldn't they be a quote unquote predator in your eyes, like you're saying you don't want to be? This mindset is very flipped around, and like I always say, just goes into the whole thing that America/Babylon is a morally messed up society, and there's a moral panic and crisis, especially because of the files that are decades old information that people still don't care about or really believe, but they're pretending to somewhat care about and halfway less than partially believe. They're still ignoring the SRA side. They're making all of it about quote unquote attraction, even though there is no attraction in trafficking or satanic ritual abuse. And there really isn't any real attraction or real love in paraphilias in Thelema in general. But there's a lot that I can say about that. And so the point of me saying all that is that one of the things about turning out the kids, like with the Willie Lynch letter and the homosexual manifesto, because I've always compared the two because they're really the same thing, is that you can also get them attracted to like older people. Okay, I had to tell this dude to leave me alone. So I'm trying to think. One of the things about the paraphilias is getting younger people attracted to older people. And I feel like the Dronophile agenda is a really good new plan for that, because it tells people that it's supposedly bad to date people that are in their age range, but yeah, they can date somebody who's 4, 5, 6, 10, 30 years older than them. So that's why I talk against it so much, but most people they don't know how to think for themselves because they're not taught to. They're taught to not think for themselves and to just like believe and think how people tell them to. So most people can't even think enough to even realize something like this and to even like connect the dots. If you're somebody that can connect the dots, people will say that you connect dots that aren't there and stuff like that, because most people really aren't that smart in general. And then also I've noticed that like traumatized women especially, and even some chomos will be like, well, I can't tell, are you for it or are you against it? And I guess I can see how some people that can't think can get that mixed up. But it's funny though, that as somebody with SIBO and all types of intestinal issues that cause brain fog and brain cell death, and even including the iatrogenic brain damage, that I still seem to think better than most people do. But I'm trying to think about what else I could say with oh yeah, so this goes into the next bullet point. I saw a girl wearing a shirt that said "I have a boner" when I was at one of like the art showcase events, I guess as I could call it. Pretty much where like people come to sell stuff, and like a lot of young people come out and they like talk to each other. Which environments like this always remind me of like how I'm always made to feel like, due to my different life situations, that I shouldn't be able to do things that other kids my age do or can do, because people, they want to grownify me, not even just for like the sexual predatory reasons, but just in general, because it just makes them feel better about the whole situation. People generally feel guilty for not quote unquote helping you, so they're gonna try to like find a way to blame you for stuff and accuse you of things, and it just makes people feel better. But also the thing that I mentioned before, which is that when people feel like you're in a more screwed up situation, supposedly, even though that's probably not true, this is actually better than safer than being with quote unquote parents or relatives. But when people feel like that, they feel like, well, even though you're young, you should be doing this, this, and that because you're in this situation. But maybe like if you live with family or something, then you can do like the normal things. But instead, you need to be like trying to get a penthouse or some crazy stuff. So that goes into the whole complex thing that I mention all the time, which is that street kids aren't seen as kids. But anywho, I'm not gonna lie, this sounds like a shirt that maybe I would have wore when I was like 9 or 10. And honestly, it makes me think back to the whole ch0m0.Women situation, which can even go to the whole thing that I mentioned in my hypothetically paraphilia or whatever it's called playlist. And I think even in my Drownify Agenda playlist, because some of the same videos are in both, is that one thing that I noticed with me and other people that I know and have known is that if you're like outcasted, you're more likely to end up dating like a ch0m0, sex predator, groomer, whatever in the world you want to call it anyways. But also when you're constantly pushed out of environments where you're not where you're never around people your age, or you're not allowed around people your age, or they find you weird, or you're like, you haven't been to school, you're not in school, you don't go to college or you haven't been to high school, middle school, or whatever to meet people, you don't know where to go to meet people, you're a street kid especially, even if you're in a place like where there's other street kids, due to like the mommy daddy issues with the whole scenario, especially if you're a foster kid, and especially if you're a male, because guys are taught that they're not the target, so they're not even taught to like know when they're in a predatory situation. So I'd say it's actually worse for guys, younger and even like older, whatever. You're more likely to end up dating somebody who's like way older than you anyways, or just end up in some paraphilia type relationship with someone maybe older or even younger, because one, you're probably smarter than the average person. Like I've always been told that I understand more than most grown people. And then you're never in situations with people around your age, so you're likely to just end up in some weird, probably unhealthy, unsafe relationships anyways, because you're smarter, but then also your circumstances. And so, I think I have 2 screenshots that I can put in for that. I would just have to upload this later though, because I'd have to put it all together on the computer. But yeah, anyways, a shirt like that, that can definitely be like something that'll make these predatory people whose eyes already light up when they see kids and stuff and vulnerable seeming people, that'll definitely cause something like that. But I'm not doing the victim blaming thing, because like generally, I think back to this picture that I saw somewhere, maybe on Google, and it was a bunch of like Arabic kids or something. They were holding up signs. They were all like under 10. And the sign said things like, "Don't tell me not to accept candy. Tell adults to stop harming us. Don't tell me not to talk to strangers. Tell whoever." Pretty much like stop trying to make it about getting victims or possible victims to like take accountability for other people's actions and to blame themselves for things that happen to them. Pretty much. That's like a summary, because I don't remember like everything word for word. But that's also like a really good thing, because like even kind of with the arguments of people will get raped regardless of what they wear, but it also makes me think back to the situation in the little 3 months of 6th grade I went to, and I was looking at this girl and she said that I was staring at her because she was wearing a crop top, and then this other girl was like, well, she's probably horny because you're showing too much skin, and then she was like, well, it doesn't matter what I wear. And it's like, I mean, yeah, somebody that's a predator